Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're checking out the Jackery HomePower 3000, one of the lightest and most compact power stations in its class. In this video, I'm going to put it through a full series of tests and show you everything you need to know before deciding if this is the right power station for you. I'll also share a few helpful tips to help you get the most out of it. So, let's jump right into it. When it comes to specs, this power station comes with a 3072 watt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery, which is known for being one of the safest and most durable battery types out there. Just to give you a reference, after about 4,000 charge cycles, which is almost like using it every day for 10 years, it will still retain around 70% of its original capacity. On the power side, it delivers 3,600 running watts, which is enough to power most of the appliances around the house. And for short bursts, it can handle up to 7,200 watts of surge power, which is really impressive for its size. I'll be testing all of that in this video so we can see how accurate those numbers really are. When you receive the power station, inside the box you'll find the unit itself, the instruction manual, and the AC charging cable, and that's it. There's not much included, just the basics to get you started. When it comes to the design, this power station feels really solid and well built. But what is truly impressive is how compact it is compared to other models with the same capacity and power output. That's mainly because Jackery uses a high-density lithium iron phosphate battery pack and an optimized internal layout that keeps everything efficient without adding extra bulk. The unit measures about 12 inches tall, 16.5 inches long, and 13 inches wide, and when it comes to weight, it comes in at around 60 pounds. Which is really impressive considering that most power stations in the 3000 watt-hour range usually weigh closer to 80 pounds or more. It's still very portable, and that's actually the reason why it doesn't come with wheels. Instead, it has built-in handles on both sides, which make it surprisingly easy to lift and move around. Now, taking a closer look at the front, you'll find the main display screen, which shows all the important information like the battery percentage, input and output wattage, and an estimated remaining runtime based on your current usage. This front panel is also where you'll find all the output ports, and they are divided into two main sections. Starting from the left side, you'll find the DC section, which has its own power button to activate it. The first thing you'll notice is a 12-volt car port, perfect for powering something like a portable fridge. Below that, there are two USB-C ports, each rated at 100 watts. So you can fast charge laptops or other high-power devices. And right under those, you also get two USB-A ports, rated at 18 watts each, ideal for charging smaller gadgets like phones or accessories. On the right side, you'll find the AC section, which delivers 120 volts of pure sine wave power. That means you can safely plug in sensitive electronics without worrying about damaging them. Here, you get 4 standard grounded AC outlets, and together they share the full 3600 watts of continuous output that this power station is rated for. You can use them individually for smaller devices or spread that power across all 4 at once. And one really nice touch is that this unit also includes a 30 amp RV outlet, which makes it super convenient for anyone who wants to power their camper or connect directly to an RV setup. Now, moving over to the right side of the power station, this is where you'll find all the input ports. Here's where you plug in the included cable to charge the unit through AC power, and right next to that are the 2 ports for solar charging. These use Jackery's own DC 8020 connectors. Jackery still refuses to use the XT60 or XT90 connectors, which are much more common across other solar brands. So, if you already have third-party panels, you'll probably need an adapter. These two DC inputs are wired in parallel, and together they support up to 1000 watts of solar input at 60 volts max. And the last thing you'll find here are 2 reset breakers. If something ever trips or goes wrong, you can simply press them to reset the system. On this side, Jackery also includes a ventilation port to help keep the system cool while it's running or charging. Moving to the other side, you'll find another vent, which works together with the first one to push air through and regulate the internal temperature. That's actually the only thing you'll find on this side. And as for the back of the unit, it's completely clean with no ports or buttons. Now, comparing the HomePower 3000 to other Jackery models, even though they're not exactly in the same category, the closest one I'd say is the Jackery Explorer 3000 Pro. This new HomePower version is better in almost every way. It offers more power and overall improved performance. Plus, it's built with lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are safer and last much longer compared to the older chemistry used in the 3000 Pro. Comparing it to some of Jackery's lower models like the Jackery Explorer 1000 V2 and the Jackery Explorer 2000 V2, they actually share a lot of similarities in design and layout. The main difference is that the HomePower 3000 doesn't include the built-in LED light that the smaller models have. The second big difference is that the HomePower 3000 includes a 30 amp RV plug, which makes perfect sense since this is a much larger unit. The handles are also a bit different. On the smaller models, they're retractable, while on the HomePower 3000 they're fixed on the sides. They even use the same style of solar input ports, just with different power ratings, so the setup process feels very familiar. I will leave a comparison table on screen so you can easily see how the specs line up side by side. Now, this power station also comes with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity, which means you can control it using the Jackery app. In my personal opinion, the app isn't exactly Jackery's strongest point. It gives you access to the basic features, but not much more than that. Still, it's very easy to use and does the job for quick monitoring and control. Inside the app, you can check the battery percentage, estimated runtime, and both the input and output power in real time. You can also turn the DC and AC sections on or off, and switch between two charging modes, fast charging and quiet charging. But I'll leave a dedicated section later in the video to talk more in depth about that. However, even though the app works well, I feel like it's missing some of the advanced options that other brands include. For example, it would be great if you could set a custom charging rate or define a specific top and bottom charge limit. Now, moving on to the testing part, the first thing I wanted to check was the 3600 running watts that Jackery advertises, which is quite a lot for a power station this size. I also wanted to see what happens when you go over that limit. Some power stations, when overloaded, will actually drop their output voltage instead of shutting off completely. That might let them keep running for a bit, but it's not good for sensitive electronics, because that voltage drop can cause instability or even damage certain devices. For my first test, I set up a total load of about 4000 watts using a few heaters, which are great for this kind of test since they draw a constant load. When I powered everything on, the voltage stayed stable at around 118 volts, which is exactly what you want to see. It managed to hold that load for about 1 full minute before it finally overloaded and shut off, which is actually really good performance. I even got a notification on the Jackery app showing the cause of the shutdown, and the display showed an F6 error code, which indicates an overload condition. To push things even further, I set up a 4500 watt load, and the unit managed to hold that for about 30 seconds. During that time, the voltage stayed stable at around 118 volts. Then I pushed it even harder, getting close to 5000 watts, just to see if it could handle a short burst at that level, and it actually did. It ran for about 13 seconds before shutting down, and even then the voltage never dropped, which is a really good sign of a strong inverter design. I even tried going over 5000 watts, but every time I did, it overloaded almost immediately. So that seems to be the limit for short duration loads. To really confirm the continuous rating, I ran a steady load of about 3600 watts until the battery was completely drained, and it powered everything flawlessly from start to finish. The voltage stayed constant the entire time, proving that it can easily handle its rated output without any issues. When the test finished and the battery hit 0%, the internal temperature reached around 44 degrees Celsius, or about 111 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually really good for this level of power draw. It shows that the cooling system works efficiently, keeping the unit from overheating even under a heavy load. Now, the second test I wanted to do was the spike test. This unit is rated to handle up to 7200 watts of surge power, which is a really big number. That rating basically means it can handle short power spikes that happen when certain tools or appliances first start up, like air compressors, saws, or anything with a motor. For the first test, I used a table saw, which is a tool that usually spikes in power when it starts up. I turned it on and it ran flawlessly. I repeated the test a few times to see if I could catch the maximum spike, and the highest I recorded was around 32.4 amps, which equals roughly 3,893 watts. The Jackery handled that with no problem at all. Since it handled that first test so easily, I decided to step it up and connect another saw. This time, I tried running both saws at the same time, and it managed to start both tools without any hesitation. The amps peaked at around 46, which equals roughly 5,513 watts, and it still ran them smoothly and without any issues. To take it a step further, I added another load, a heat gun, to simulate a constant power draw. When I ran it along with both saws, the total load reached around 53 amps, or roughly 6,384 watts. So it definitely does a really good job handling power spikes. Now, whenever you have a power station like this, if you leave the AC inverter turned on, it will always draw a little bit of power even if you're not running anything. That's what's known as idle consumption. In this case, I have to say Jackery did a really good job with power efficiency. I left the power station on for 12 hours with the AC inverter enabled, and it went from 100% down to 95%, which is honestly very impressive. That means it only used about 0.4% of the battery per hour, or roughly 13 watt-hours per hour of idle draw, which is extremely efficient for a power station of this size. Now, whenever you have an inverter running, there's always some energy loss. So for the next test, I wanted to see just how efficient this one really is. For this test, I applied a load of around 1000 watts and let the unit run continuously until the battery was completely drained. Right before it shut off, we managed to get 2,932 watt-hours out of this power station. Since this model has a 3072 watt-hour battery, that means it converted about 95% of the total energy into usable AC power. That's actually a really good result. Most power stations I've tested are usually in the 85 to 93% range, so this one is definitely among the most efficient I've seen so far. Now, when it comes to recharging this power station, there are three main ways you can do it. The first is by plugging it into a regular AC outlet. The second is by using solar panels. And the third is by charging it through your car. However, Jackery doesn't include anything for car charging with this unit. But don't worry, I'll show you a simple trick at the end of the video that you can use to make that work. The first way you can recharge the power station is by using the AC plug and connecting it directly to a wall outlet. Here, you'll find two charging modes, fast charging and quiet charging. When using fast charging, Jackery advertises a full charge in about 2.2 hours, which is roughly 2 hours and 12 minutes. I ran my own test charging it from 0% all the way to 100%, and it finished in exactly 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is pretty much spot on. During that time, it was pulling around 1,600 watts all the way up to about 97%, and then it slowed down to around 600 watts for the last few percent. That's normal behavior to help protect the battery and extend its lifespan. I also measured the noise level from the cooling fans, and it averaged around 40 decibels, which is not loud. But if you want to charge in a quieter mode, you can switch to quiet charging mode. This mode reduces the charging speed to around 900 watts, which takes roughly 4 hours for a full charge, but it's much quieter and gentler on the battery over time. Something I noticed here is that unlike the Jackery Explorer 1000 V2 and the 2000 V2, this model doesn't include the emergency charging mode. On those smaller models, you can activate that mode to charge the battery even faster than the regular fast or quiet modes. I'm not really sure why Jackery didn't include it here, but 2 hours and 15 minutes is already really fast for a battery of this size. So, the second way you're going to charge this power station is by using solar panels. This unit supports up to 1000 watts of solar input, but because of its size, I'd recommend using at least a 400 watt setup to get a good balance between portability and charging speed. One of the options you can get with this power station is the Jackery Solar Saga solar panel bundle, which includes two of their 200 watt Solar Saga panels. Here, I'm using just one of them, and I have to say, this is by far one of the best panels I've tested when it comes to performance. The way you connect it is through the side input ports on the power station. Now, there's often some confusion here because these solar panels come with a DC7909 connector. It fits the port physically, but it won't work since the inner pin size is different. That connector is actually designed for other Jackery models. The correct one to use with this power station is the DC8020 connector, which is the one specifically made for the HomePower 3000. With this Jackery panel, I'm getting around 150 watts of input right now. Keep in mind it's a bit cloudy, so your results may vary depending on your solar conditions. You can also use other solar panel brands, not just Jackery's. The only thing to keep in mind is that they need to operate under 60 volts, since that's the voltage limit for this power station. For example, here I'm using a Renogy 200 watt solar panel, and it works perfectly. The only extra thing I needed was a cable that goes from the MC4 connectors on the solar panel to the DC8020 input on the Jackery. Another important thing to know is that since there are two solar input ports wired in parallel, if you want to connect two solar panels at the same time, they both need to have the same voltage. For example, I can connect the Renogy and the Jackery solar panels together since they run at the same voltage, and they work perfectly fine that way. With both connected, I'm getting close to 300 watts of total input, which isn't top performance, but it depends heavily on sunlight and weather conditions. Under good sunlight, with a full 400 watt solar setup, you can expect to fully charge the power station in about 11 hours. And lastly, the third way to recharge this power station is by using your car. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Jackery doesn't include anything for car charging in the box. You have two main options here. The first one is to buy a cable that goes from your car's cigarette lighter port to one of the solar charging inputs on the power station. However, this method has some big limitations. Most car outlets are limited to about 100 watts, which means charging the power station from 0 to 100% would take over 30 hours. Plus, you need to keep your car running the whole time, which really isn't practical or efficient. The second option, and the one I personally use, is to go with an alternator charger. In my case, I'm using one from the Etaker brand. This is the one I found to be the most universal, and it works really well. Basically, it draws power directly from your car's alternator and can deliver up to 500 watts, which is much faster and more efficient than using the regular 12-volt port. Now, let me show you a quick tutorial on how this setup works. Let's say this is your car battery. First, you'll take the cable that comes with the Etaker alternator charger and connect it to the charger where it's labeled alternator. The other end goes directly to your car battery, and it even includes a fuse to protect the system. Next, for the second part, you'll need a cable that goes from ring terminals to the DC8020 port on the Jackery. I couldn't find a single cable that goes directly from ring terminals to DC8020, so you have two options. You can either make one yourself by attaching ring terminals to the proper cable, or you can do what I did. Use two separate adapters. The first goes from ring terminals to Anderson connectors, and the second goes from Anderson to DC8020. Now we connect the ring terminals to the DC terminals on the alternator charger, and the DC8020 end goes into the solar input on the Jackery. Once everything is connected, turn on the Etaker alternator charger, and you'll see the Jackery immediately start pulling over 400 watts of power, which is exactly what you want to see. The Etaker can also be managed through the Smart Life app, but I won't go too deep into that right now. This is just a quick overview in case you want to try this setup yourself. Now, another thing I wanted to mention is that with this alternator charger, you can actually pull up to 500 watts from your vehicle's alternator, and at the same time, you can add another 500 watts through the solar input port. So, if you have an RV setup, this becomes really useful because you can combine both sources and charge at up to 1000 watts simultaneously, which is the maximum input power this station is rated for. Now, there are plenty of situations where this power station can come in handy. It is called the HomePower, so it's clearly designed by Jackery to serve as a home backup solution during power outages. And in that role, it performs really well. But you can use it for much more than that. It's great for camping trips, for job sites where you need portable power, or even to keep in your trunk so you can run tools or charge equipment wherever you go. Basically, no matter the situation, this thing can handle it. I'll leave a link to the Jackery HomePower 3000 down in the description below, along with all the gear I used in this video. If you decide to buy them through those links, I might earn a small commission at no extra cost to you, and it really helps support the channel. Thanks so much for watching. I hope I was able to answer most of your questions, but if there's anything else you'd like to know, just drop a comment below and I'll be happy to help. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.